Welcome to Adjusting to Six Figures. Two best friends that turn their lives around, professionally and personally. So if you're looking to change, we tell it like it is, with no bullshit. Shut up with the excuses and make something of your life. Let's do this. This is Adjusting to Six Figures. And here are your hosts, Jeremy Reddick and Chris Stanley.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Adjusting to Six Figures podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Stanley, and I'm here with one of my best friends, my best buddy and pal in the whole wide world, Jeremy Reddick, or as I like to call him, Jerm. Say hello to the audience, Jerm.
You gotta stop calling me Jerm, man. I'm a professional now.
Never.
I'm a public figure. You know?
I never will. Before I tell this story real quick, as always, this episode and this whole show is brought to you by Adjuster University. Please go to adjuster-u.com and purchase a class, look at the information, and become a better adjuster. Take pride and take some seriousness to your business, and make sure you're giving your clients what they need. And you can give them what they need by learning and by bettering yourself.
You can service them better.
Yeah, exactly.
They want you to service them.
One of the service. This is going to be a lot of sex jokes because I'm in the captain's seat today. Real quick, what is funny is that I remember one of the first times, and we're going to get really into this, but one of the first times that we were doing a claim together, and by together I mean Jeremy is and was my mentor for claims adjusting. And he showed me the ropes, told me what to do, yada, yada, yada. But there was one time we were at a job and all I was doing was shadowing him. And I was a 550-pound mess, just like following him around. And at one point we were outside of this person's house and we're looking at the elevations. That's a little inside baseball for all of you adjusters. And I said to him, I was like, hey, Jerm. And he snapped around so quick. And he goes, Jeremy. It's Jeremy.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I better be careful. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this. Just like the last episode, if you were listening to it, that last episode was all about me. And it was interview style where Jeremy asked me questions. And the whole point of this is so you, the audience, can get to know us. And now it's Jeremy's turn. And while he may not have lost 300 million pounds and he might not be as drug addicted as I was. His story on claims adjusting and just changing his life in general is insane. And it's an inspiration, and it's just one of my favorite stories to hear. So I'm excited. So anyway, we're going to jump right into this, and I'm actually going to steal one of your questions that you gave to me. And I'm very sorry, everyone. You're going to hear dogs drinking water. You're going to hear dogs hitting the camera. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lower that. Okay, so the first thing I want to open up with is this. What were you like as a kid?
Oh, man. As a kid, I mean, I went through different phases, when I was a kid. So when I was real young, like elementary school, I was, my parents never cut my hair and I had bad haircuts, and we'll get to my haircuts in a while.
Wait, hold on. You're like, your parents never cut, like they never took you to get a haircut?
Yeah. So my not so much my parents, but my father was very, very frugal, right? There were a lot of expenses that he thought were unnecessary. And my father, he has long hair. So he thought my hair as a boy was beautiful. So let it go. So what that did for me was that made me a moving target for other kids in school. So I would always get, I've seen my pictures as a kindergartner, and, I look like a cute little kid with a full head of hair. But by the time I was in like second grade, I had long hair. And, my parents neither one of them were really like, fashionistas. So I would go to school with like an oversized shirt, and I got long hair, and I looked like a bum, Even to this day.
I was gonna say Kurt Cobain, but
Nope,
all right, whatever.
nope. Didn't have that cool air about me. I just looked like a bum going into school, and kids saw that, so then they'd pick on me. And then and my parents never watched my eating either. So then I would start getting, chubbier. They would get a kick out of me eating an entire bowl of spaghetti. So, think about it. I'm going to school. I'm husky. I'm mildly fat.
Really?
Yeah, man, mildly.
I'm not even doing this because of the podcast, but I never knew that.
Yeah.
I only knew you. I met you when we were teenagers, and you were like a strapping young skater looking kid. You did go through a lot of like phases in regards to your like attire,
Right.
but you were like the pretty boy of the whole group.
Yeah, I was always trying to fit in. That's the point I was getting at is, I was back in elementary school. I was bullied a lot for obvious reasons. I mean, I'd freaking bully me the way I was showing up. But so yeah, I mean, I'm wearing alien t-shirts, and I got long hair because my hair is beautiful, and I'm getting fat, and because I'm getting fat, I don't want to go outside. And because I don't want to go outside, I'm white as paper. I mean, I'm fair skinned. So, it just made it worse. So I was bullied a lot in elementary school. But I think now that I'm older and a little bit wiser, I think that what ended up happening to me from that experience in elementary school is I was always trying to find a scene, like when we grow up, we try to, we get into different phases, we get into different scenes. And that's what I ended up doing. And, I'm jumping from one thing to the next, not really committed to anything in particular, just looking for just looking for a cult, to be around, to be a part of. And, and that was it. And so, I went to that, and I go into high school. I'm into metal music, and, I'm going to metal shows. Then I'm into ICP, and, I meet you. And then I start wearing Abercrombie and Fitch, and I'm being a part of that, but that didn't last very long. And, and eventually I stopped giving a shit what other people think, and, just like clothes that fit me well, and, as a kid, that was it, just always trying to fit in. And, and I still carry around a lot of the bullying, a little bit, the baggage that comes with getting bullied as a kid.
Yeah, no, I relate to that hard in regards to like carrying around the baggage of like people bullying you, and you don't really notice it until you notice it.
Right.
Like once you notice it, it's just glaring, and it's like, oh shit, I'm doing this because I want to fit in, I want to yada yada yada.
Right.
So wow, shit, man, I just learned something about you. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, I mean, and that even to this day, when I started at Just University in the very beginning of it, with credit to the haters, I started a training company for a job, for a career that I legitimately had less than average experience in. I started, I had maybe like 6 or 7 full years of experience, and they were busy years, but 6 or 7 years as it was, busy or not. So when people started, online, started figuring that out, and they started attacking me for it, I felt obligated to respond back, which is a huge mistake. I was responding back to every single negative comment that came my way because from, back in elementary school, I got used to when somebody says something to you, say something back. When somebody pushes you, say something back. That was another issue I had back in school too, is that I would get bullied a lot for obvious reasons, but I wouldn't just take it. So I was bouncing around different elementary schools because I was constantly getting into fights.
Really?
Yeah. I went to like 3 different elementary schools by themselves. I went to 3 different elementary schools. And I still to this day, I have the worst memory, but I still remember a good handful of fights that I've gotten in just in elementary school, just in the playground, because kids would poke fun at me, and I'd punch them in the face. And then,
nice.
And then next thing I know, I'm on a one-way ticket out of there. And
wow.
Yeah.
See, I got into fights in elementary school too, and it never really got past elementary school. Like once I hit high school, I don't know why it just didn't happen. But I also never got kicked out of an elementary school for fighting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, man, I'm a badass,
You're a badass dude.
it carried over with me to high school, but it definitely toned down at that point. But nowadays, I don't fight, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, same here. So you know what? Hold on, because you you got into the adjusting course a little bit, but I want to backtrack a bit because again, so ever since I met you, and I hate using these words, but your grind and your hustle and all that shit has been leaps and bounds ahead of anyone I know. Like in the last episode, you touched on a little bit, like talking about like the businesses you made and all that. And fail or not, you made them. Like these things happen, and like I'm pretty sure that like all of your friends hold you in a regard of like no matter what anyone thinks of you, right? Like like no matter what friends or not think of you, the one thing that no one can take away is your work ethic. You work harder than anyone that I know, anyone I've ever met. And I don't just say that to fucking, kiss your ass or blow smoke. Legitimately. There was never a time where you weren't making money in some fashion or you had a goal in mind where you were talking like, yo, I'm going to do this to get to this. Like you play chess throughout the whole time that you are working and doing something. It's never like whatever you're working on is never the end product. So that's an inspiration.
well, I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing that. It certainly hasn't felt like that the whole time, especially in the my late teen, early 20s.
I don't think that anything that most people are doing correctly. I don't think that people realize it and how well they're doing if they're actually engaged in the act. Like
Sure.
if you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I'm fucking crushing it, you're probably not. Like you're probably not crushing it. But people
Right.
who are crushing it, they don't have fucking time to think about it. It's just like,
Right.
yeah, I'm busy. I got shit to do. Even if they're failing, it's like, yeah,
Right.
I got shit to do. If you know you're failing, like if you're personally failing, you're probably doing a great fucking job in the eyes of other people because they just don't like, you're just
I
failing.
think that's one of the kind of, I guess you call it a flaw, but maybe it's a, something good too. But it's definitely something that causes a lot of stress in my life is that I never feel like I'm doing good at something. I always feel like I need to be doing better. I need to be doing better. I never focus on the good stuff. If I do, and I don't even want to say that I do focus on, the things that I'm doing well, but I don't give it nearly as much credit as I know I probably should. And for that reason, I get a lot of stress from it. That we talked about it on one of these episodes, complacency. I look at I'm like deathly allergic to complacency. Once I start to get it in my head that I might be considering in the least sort of way being complacent about anything, I just my anxiety gets triggered. And then I gotta go. I gotta go. We need to change. I gotta change the environment. I gotta change things entirely. I have to do something different. I need to put it on my schedule. And it's just a constant moving thing where I can't just be happy that something is a certain way. It has to be getting better every single day, every single minute. It's a disease. It's a disease.
No, look, while I don't relate to that like very specifically, I do relate to the idea of once there's something good going on and I'm like, oh, I got an idea on this, like I have like some like type of like understanding. I always try to like I always think, well, it could be better, and then I get in my mind, I'm not even gonna fucking try anymore. Fuck it. Whereas you take the different approach. You go, how can I make this better? And then you try to do it. And you probably fail at it. But again, man, that's not noticeable to a lot of people. At least your peer group that aren't complete pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So before we get into the adjusting part, because I think that this question is important, and I think it's going to frame the rest of the episode. What were your first jobs that gave you, number one, the chance to make more money? You kind of touched on it before, but what were those jobs and experiences that you think crafted your determination and work ethic that you have now? And follow up, if it's not just the jobs, if it was an experience, you can go into that too.
Sure. Um, I think I could answer that pretty well. So I'll start. I'll start by saying this: the first form of employment that I had was with a Nathan's hot dog. The Nathan's hot dogs. That was the first job I ever got. I was convinced to get it because my girlfriend at the time, I think I'm like a freshman in high school, right? And this was it was at a Nathan's hot dog at the mall. She worked at Ben and Jerry's, and she thought that I should get a job. And I thought, yeah, that's like another group I could join. I get a job. I'll meet people. So I worked, I did, everything except management in this Nathan's hot dog for however long that was. I don't know, a couple months, something like that. And, show up in the I'd show up when I'm not on the weekends in the morning, and I would stay after school and go over there. And, you show up in your uniform and it smells like French fries. And, it has that sort of, if you've ever worked fast food, I want to say fast food because I've worked in restaurants, and I feel like I don't get the same smell, but it has like a certain smell to it once you show up.
I don't think I've ever worked at them, but I definitely know the smell of a fast food restaurant.
Yeah, you do. So I'd show up, and and I'm there for a couple hours, and I work in the front. I'm flipping hot dogs. I'm dumping fries. I'm doing that. What do you want, a cheeseburger? I'm doing that, and I would work, and occasionally, I remember you would definitely work on Fridays. So Fridays are done because this Nathan's hot dog was inside of a movie theater. So it was a Nathan's hot dog, Ben and Jerry's, and then everything out in front of that was movie theater. So Fridays and Saturdays, it was chaos. So I would, for a short period of time, lose my Fridays, lose my Saturdays, show up to this job, bust my ass, and after 2 weeks, I get a paycheck. And I don't even remember. I think minimum wage at this point was like maybe $6.50, something like that. And $6.50, just to do quick math in my head, $6.50. If I had 3 shifts, 8-hour shifts that week, that's what, 24 hours. So $6.50 times 24 equals dog shit. That's the calculation. And you take taxes out of that, that's worse than dog shit. That's cat shit. I don't know if that's worse if you're a dog person, cat person. But that was it. And even at 16, I'd look at that check like, wow, I busted my ass for that shit. I'd rather sell drugs. And we'll get to that. So so I didn't want to, so that didn't last very long. I got a couple every paycheck I would get, while some people would be happy to get a paycheck. I was pissed. It gave me a reason to be pissed, and I didn't want to work there for that. So eventually I quit. So although that wasn't the very last kind of W-2 minimum wage job I had, I think shortly after that, I worked like down the other side of the mall at a different fast food place, and I started working there, but that kind of was supported by other reasons. But that was the first time I think, because when I really look back at how many jobs that I've been an employee at, I think that set a tone for me, like mentally, to not want to do that. Because I was working there, I'm 16, but there wasn't only 16-year-olds that were working there. There were older people that were working there too. People in their 20s, people in their, there was one guy in his 40s working there at that time. And that's just what I can remember. And I remember looking at these people and saying, if I keep up at this, if I'm really good at this, is that the person that I might be able to become if I stick to this? Did they just start working here because they had no other options, or have they been here since they were my age for 20 years flipping hot dogs? Is there a success story somewhere in this little fucking hot dog place? And I couldn't believe that there was. So that would always be stuck in my head, that where's the ceiling in here? There is no, the ceiling is super low. What the fuck am I doing here? So I think that kind of set a precedent for me not to, like, that place, any place that's like minimum wage where you're getting that amount of money, and trading, although I still kind of do it, trading, dollars for hours, like that was not the place to be doing it. So that kind of started my disdain for, a W-2 job. I'm not saying every W-2 job's bad, but that, minimum wage W-2 sucks.
Those jobs, I think the fast food, retail, and call center jobs in general are like the worst, that just suck the life out of you.
Right. So, that was that. But I would honestly say that I guess when I think back, so I hated being an employee, and I like the idea of, being my own, kind of taking control, right? Being my own boss and all that shit. And I think all that came from, and I don't even know if we've ever spoken about this, but did I ever tell you I used to run wrestling websites?
No.
Oh yeah.
Not what?
So this is so back when I was this might have even been before the the Nathan's hot dogs, but not too long before. I think I might have been like 12, 13, to be honest with you, is when this started happening. Um I used to run wrestling websites.
What do you mean by run a website?
All right, so I used to be really into professional wrestling, right? I grew up, when I was less than 10, I watched WWF and WCW when it was out. So I was really, really into that. So I joined fan clubs and shit like that. And I would join these little online groups, like fantasy wrestling groups. And what it is you join, I'll try to recount it the best I can. You would join this like fantasy wrestling group, and you would pick a person, you would make up your character. Usually, I think some places you'd make up a character, other places you would take on a character that's like already, wrestling. And you would have matches against other people that were in that group. And there were, at that time, I don't think this stuff exists anymore. At that time, there was like hundreds and hundreds of different groups like this. And you would pick a character, and then when you would be going again, and whoever's running it would organize the matches. And when the matches are organized, the way that you win is by basically by being a better writer than the other person. So how like when you watch wrestling, they have like the little promos, they cut a promo, and it might just be like, Mean Gene like interviewing somebody, or could be like, somewhere outside, like Stone Cold, in a grocery store. Well, whoever could write, and it wasn't always follow this, but generally speaking, whoever could write a better kind of story about their promo, like better wording, better storyline, everything like that, and longer. Length was a big part of it too, and longer. Whoever wrote the better one, when the match would happen, the organizer would come back with the winners of it, and that's how you would win that thing. And I was so into that shit. So I would constantly be typing up, 10 years old, typing up these fucking stories. And because that was a group that I wanted to be a part of, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got pretty good at it. So eventually I said, fuck this, I'm going to start my own group. So then I would start my own things like that, right? And then at some point down that line, and I think these still exist, they were like wrestling news websites. So if you were really into wrestling, there were news websites.
So I would go on those when I was a kid all the time.
Right.
I never even heard of the shit you're talking about, but I always went on the wrestling news.
So check this out. So I was really into those, and then I was like, you know what? I bet I could start my own one of these. So I started my own. And this was like back in the day. This is like old school HTML websites. So like I started making my own website and figuring the shit out, on my own. How to work tables and HTML and put it all together and make it look nice. And I would copycat like other major ones, and I started doing that. And then eventually I got bumped into this other guy. I still remember his name. His name was Justin Rowland. And we started talking, and then we teamed up and made our own little website. And we were getting hits. People were going to our website, and we would just take shit from other websites and then just reword it, throw it into ours, and people would come by. And then eventually we were like, well, we got to start making how do we make some money? So we started putting ads up. So, and my father still talks about this to this day. he was getting, because we had the mailbox down the street, and he would go get the mail. And all of a sudden, his 11, 12-year-old son's getting, envelopes in the mail with nothing on the envelope. And I'd open it up, and it'd be a check for like $200, $300. Like, they started coming in, and he's like, what the fuck what is happening here? I'm getting
What are
checks.
you doing?
Yeah, I'm not even old enough to do anything, and I'm getting checks in the mail. So that, I guess, when something like that happens at an early age, I guess you just get this idea that anything is kind of possible. And now that I'm thinking about it, what I think might have happened is I uh I think I ended up getting upset with the guy that I was working with, Justin, because I was doing more work and I was splitting everything with him. And I think I stopped paying him, and I think everything just like fell apart. And then I got the job at the hot dog place. So
Dude, that's fascinating, though. I never knew any of this. Number one. Number two, I didn't know that you could get checks in the mail for $200-300 for having an ad on a wrestling website.
Yeah, any website, you throw ads up there. Things are a little, things are slightly different now. I mean, this was before Google took over. Google's a lot harder to make that same money off of, because it sounds good, but like, even to this day, I mean, for me to get those sorts of get that sort of traction on a website that we were getting back then is much harder. There were less websites back then. Um, and to get that money, like, we were getting PPC, we were putting up PPC ads, which pay per click. So every time, somebody would go on the website and click an ad, we'd get like, 15, 20 cents or something like that. And then I think we were cheating it too, where we could, and again, you can't do this anymore, but we would make it so that, I think, when you showed up to the website, you got a pop-up. You remember pop-ups, how like those are a thing? You'd get a pop-up. Right. And so then for every 1,000 pop-ups, which we were getting at least 1,000 a day, you would get a certain amount of money just on that. So we had pay-per-click, we had those are pay-p, we had pay-pc, for commissions, which were bigger. And then we were cluttered with ads. We were ad heavy. But I think that, just to bring it full circle, that was the start of it. That was the start of kind of the entrepreneur. I can do things on my own. And then I think, and the only other thing that stands out was, back in those days, I was still using a computer. It was like a 486, if you remember that computer. That it's that back in the day, before like, whatever we have now, there was I think it was like a 386, a 486. These were like the old box PCs, and that was the top of the line. And my father got one used because he's cheap. And eventually I was able to move up from that. And I remember being super young and haggling with a guy at a garage sale over the sale of the I'm like 13, and the guy was trying to fucking lowball me, and I wasn't having it. And we kept going back. I guess he thought I was a kid and like I'd be a pushover, trying to get a 46 off me for $100. Fuck you. So yeah. So anyway, I sold it, and that's another thing my father still talks about to this day. But and that was the start of it. So so that really molded me to not want a job, and I want to kind of take shit into my own hands.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, that lays the groundwork for, like, I mean, you mentioned something before, and I think it goes right into this, is that you were looking at the hot dog place. You were looking for a success story. You were looking for the ceiling, right? Now, one of the most depressing things, I think, is to go into a job like that and see 40, 50, 60-year-olds. Now, I'm not shitting on anybody who, like, you're getting your life together, you're doing your thing or whatever, or like, that's just what you do or you like it. No judgment, right? But there is a clear type of personality and person who works those jobs who is older than 25, right? And I would say it's a large majority, where they are negative, they're depressed, they don't want to be there, and all they do is complain, right? But they're not willing to do anything. Now, when I was working at those types of jobs, I just thought that was life. I was like, well, this is just how it is. There's no
Yeah,
question.
settling for mediocrity.
Yeah, but you, on the other hand, and this is why I look up to you immediately when you're fucking like 16, 17 years, like, there's a better way around this. There's a better way to do this, and again, man, I think that's not to bring it around to be corny, but that isn't adjusting to six figures. That's a six-figure mindset. It's like, how can we make this better?
Yeah.
How can I make this a better way?
I agree with that. And that right there, that there has to be a better way. That is a constant thing in my head. I am
okay.
and I'm talking chronically. That is a thing that is always going through my head, down to everything, down to fucking me getting a haircut now. Like, I don't want to, there has to be a better way than me going on this fucking website and booking a haircut every time I get a haircut. I want to find somebody who can just put me in for 6 months every other week, and I don't have to touch. Like, I'm constantly thinking ways to, improve everything I'm doing, down to minute little things. It's like I said, it's a condition at some point.
Well, it sounds like an obsession, but also it's not the worst obsession to have.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a pretty positive obsession. You could argue that it's, good, whatever. I don't think that's a big deal. I'm actually impressed by that. Now, we can go two ways here, buddy. We can go two ways. I think we're gonna go the one way. Fuck it. I'm gonna direct this ship. So you're 16, 17. We meet around that same time, okay? And you have a job. Like, I think when I met you were working some restaurants. You got, your Nathan's hot dog background. In addition, you're, a childhood Silk Road guy who's getting, $2,000-$3,000 checks in the mail for wrestling clicks. It's impressive. But at some point, right? At some point, you think, okay, there's got to be a better way to make money. And you find a better way to make money. All right? And this goes into the entrepreneur. This is before we find entrepreneurial Jeremy Reddick teaching classes and all that. You're not teaching classes when I meet you. You're doing something a little bit different.
Oh, selling ecstasy.
Yeah, selling ecstasy, baby.
Yeah. So that was a thing too. I sold a bunch of drugs, but
yeah, you did.
I found a little bit of financial success with selling e-pills back in the day. Yeah, I used to do that, and this kind of goes into the and I know, some people listening to this might be like, "Oh my God, that's terrible," and you're freaking right. I mean, it's not good, but it kind of goes into what we spoke about on another episode. I when I was that age in high school, I didn't see me having any options. The options that I had were very, very limited. I dropped out of high school. I had no I had no desire to be in high school. I had no desire to learn. Right. I didn't want to be there. It brought up bad feelings. I wasn't good. I didn't have good teachers that very few, I should say, good teachers. So I didn't want to be a part of it. So eventually I would leave, and the way that society kind of builds you up, they tell you how important high school is, and it's absolutely important. You should stay in high school. You should do as best as you can. You should do it with the intention that if you don't go through high school and do well, it's going to be harder to go to college if that's what you want to do. But kind of what society, at least at that time, at least in my own environment, made you believe is that if you don't graduate high school, you're fucked. Nobody's going to hire you without a high school diploma. And I couldn't finish high school. I just, it wasn't in the cards for me. I could not apply myself to get there. So if I have two schools of thought here, if I have one school of thought saying that if you don't graduate, if you don't get your high school diploma, you're going to be a bum, you're going to be a burnout, you're never going to amount to anything. And meanwhile, while that is playing in my head, I just seemingly as a 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, I can't bring myself to do it, whether it's a comprehension thing, whether it's whatever. I just couldn't do it. So at that point, I just kind of assumed, well, I have no options here. I'm not going to get a good job. It's just not going to happen. So, but I have an appetite, right? I have an appetite to make money, but it's not going to be through a job. And at that point, I don't understand because you're 16 years old. You're very lucky to have a mentor or somebody or a parent, somebody like that that can pull you aside and say, hey, listen, no, you're not finishing high school. You suck at high school. Let's be honest. You're terrible. But here's what your options are, and here's what you can do to achieve it. You don't have that person. So you're just left to your own devices. And at that time, we're doing drugs together, right? We're smoking weed. I smoked weed for the first time. I was like 12, 13. I think I was 12 technically.
I was 13. I was 13.
And I smoked one time, and it doesn't really matter. And by the time I was 15, by the time I was like a freshman in high school, I was hanging out at a friend's house, just getting high off my ass, just high on the hog, Monday through Friday after school. So that's what I was used to. And then eventually somebody would come by with a little bit of coke or, some pills or something like that. And so that's what I was used to. I was in that environment. I was in the drug environment. I wasn't in any other environment. I had at that point, no access to any other positive environment. I was in a negative environment. But I had an appetite to make money. So it became only natural at that point to just start selling drugs. And I was smart enough at that point to understand the basic concept that if I buy a lot of drugs at one time, I might be able to get a little bit of a discount on it. So at that point, one way or another, I would start, I was in the funding round, right? I was looking for funding. And then I would get some money, and then I would get, it started with weed. It started with weed in high school, just getting shitty weed, just buying a bunch of shitty weed, and then, selling, I would sell a bag for $25. I might have paid 20 for it. That was $5. I tried to do that a couple times, so I'd get, $15, $20, which isn't shit. But at that time, you feel like you're making money, making deals. So, I would do that, but, you're not making a whole lot. Then by the time I get, 17, now I can drive around. Now I've got a little bit more options. And so then at a certain point, I discover ecstasy, and I'm like, this shit is great. And if you've never done ecstasy before, it is a trip. So, I started doing ecstasy. I'm like, this is great. I wonder how many of these ecstasy pills. And I think at that time, a pill of ecstasy was like $15, somewhere around there, $20 if you wanted to get ripped off. So, I started doing that. And I started meeting other people that love doing ecstasy. And then I thought, well, maybe I can sell them ecstasy. So I started doing that. And that was really what kind of got me moving forward to, selling more and more drugs. Cause then I'm meeting, cause now we're hard drugs. We're not dealing with weed anymore. Weed's basically legal now. Ecstasy, I'm pretty sure there's some states have some, different laws, but for the most part, that's a fucking hard drug. And so now I'm dealing, and I remember the first guy I started getting drugs from. I'm in New Jersey. I was driving out, and that was with you. I was driving out to Massachusetts to get these e-pills from. I drive Brockton, Massachusetts. I drive all the way there to meet with this guy and do that. And I would buy some drugs off him. And the stuff that he was giving me was great. I mean, it was really good stuff. So back in that day in New Jersey, people would take it, then they tell their friends, and then their friends would tell their friends. And so now I'm doing well. Then this guy starts selling me, kind of shitty stuff. And then now I got to look for somebody else. And this was one of the sketchiest situations I've been in. So I already started buying off this guy, right? But he kept dicking me around on like pricing, stuff like that. It wasn't a very good relationship. And I only did a couple deals with him. But something happened where I went to go pick up more, and the guy owed me some money. So I went there with a couple buddies of mine, and one of them had a gun. So when we showed up, he had a couple buddies with him who I guess didn't have a gun. And we brought up the topic. So at that point, it was just to buy more, new stuff. So there was a new tab, but he still owed me some money from like a deal before. And the one guy flashed a gun, and they paid. And at that same thing, I upped the ante and I said, I need to know who you're getting this from. And he told me. So he set that up because I said, I'm not doing another deal with you. You're going to tell me who you got this from. And then we got up there. So then I started doing deals with this other dude, which was a way more professional situation. But then that guy was like, you sell any blow? And I'm like, nah, I don't sell any blow. And he's like, you should start selling some blow. And I was like, I'll think about it. And then I started doing, and then as time progressed, then I never really started selling blow. I sold like a little bit. I mostly just did it all. But now at that point, now I've got a freaking habit, and not a drug habit so much, but now I got a selling drugs habit, and that persisted for a couple years after that. All right, because that again, later I would get a job at a restaurant, which would do decent money, but I'm still in that environment. I'm still smoking weed with people, and still at this point, it's much more taboo. It's not readily available like it is now. So
I'm sorry to cut you off, but were you able to utilize the restaurant business to like up your drug sales? I can only imagine.
No.
Really?
Yeah, no. I mean, other than employees, not customers or anything like.
No. That's what I mean. Not customers, but like just like employees, like your colleagues.
Yeah, a little bit, because I don't know what it's like now. I would imagine it's somewhat the same, but restaurant workers. I mean, some of the hardest workers out there. Whether you're in the kitchen or the front of house. I mean, it's a stressful job. Especially when it's busy. And after that shit is over with, you want to fucking knock off. Have a couple drinks, and it's a fun time. Every restaurant, just about every place I've worked at, hospitality wise, that was kind of the environment. Is after everything was all said and done, you want to get fucked up. A couple people would have more mature lifestyles and wouldn't be a part of it, but then there'd be the big, group of people that, yeah, they wanted to party after it was done. So I did that for a while. It wasn't until like, I don't know, my early 20s that for whatever reason I backed away from it. I think I backed away. No, I backed away from it. Another opportunity didn't present itself or anything like that. I just wanted to get away from that environment.
I was just gonna ask, was there like because for me, like I sold weed a little bit. I was never like a drug dealer. I sold weed, and then when I moved out to LA, when I was doing Uber and Lyft, I would like middleman cocaine for my passengers all the time.
Right.
Like that was my thing, right? But I was never like you were definitely the closest thing to an actual drug dealer that I knew
That's
as a
the
friend.
worst thing to hear. And I do want to kind of preface this too, because I feel like what we've just been talking about could be easily misconstrued. I still really didn't make that much money off of it. I supported most of my other habits by doing this. The E thing, the when I was selling ecstasy, it might have seemed like I was doing pretty well for myself. I also had no expenses really. I had gas. That was it. So I mean, if I walked away from the week with an extra, $400 in my back pocket, I was big pimping at that point. Now, give me $400, I don't even wink.
Well, I think there's a big let me also rephrase. You weren't like a big time drug dealer where like you had like a stash house and you had people selling for you and all that. But what I'm saying is that like you were definitely the only person I knew who had connections to people who sold in larger quantities than normal.
Sure. Yeah.
And also I think that like you and I mean, to your credit, you were not arrested ever for drug dealing,
Almost.
which yeah. Oh no, a lot of almost sure, but you weren't making thousands and thousands of dollars.
No.
Anytime I knew anyone that was dealing drugs, and myself included, it was mainly just like support our habit. Like
That's what
support
it
the drug
was.
habit.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
But anyway, but my question was, and I guess you kind of answered already. There wasn't any like big particular moment because for me, if I'm around a gun and I'm trying to get drugs, that's like, all right, this is over.
That was
this
early.
Is done.
Yeah, and it kept going for a while after that.
This is it. This is it for me.
No,
but
there were a few times that I really should have during the course of the whole thing. One time I'm not even going to bring up, but there were a few times that, looking back on it now, I should have just said, you know what? That's the sign. Gotta get out. One time I nearly, there were when I was selling ecstasy, there were two big things that happened that I should have just cashed my chips in and just walked away. One time I didn't even realize it until some point after, but it was a snowing. It had just started snowing and it was like coming down, like zero visibility. It was real bad. And this guy that I would sell to normally, like, a couple times a week, he came and he wanted like, some like bigger amount, like 10 pills or something like that, which is like $250 or something, right? $200, something like that, which is a big deal to me. So I showed up. It was in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. We were meeting in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and I show up, right? And again, it's snowing, snow's hitting your windshield, piling up. You got your windshield wipers on, and forms into bricks of ice and all that. So show up. The guy comes up to my window, and and I give and like I know the guy at this point, right? He's a consistent customer. I give him the shit. He looks at it. He's like, "Good stuff, man," and gives me whatever it was, like a roll of money or something. It wasn't like flat out, "This is $200." It was money, and I know the guy, so I'm like, whatever. So he handed it to me, and then he took this big chunk of ice off of my windows down. He took this big chunk of ice off my windshield and he held it. It was like this, a two-hander. And he was like, "This is a pretty big piece." And I was like, "Yeah, man, that's good. So just hit me up whenever." And he's like, "All right." And then he left. And then I did whatever in my car. And then I, went to go like, sort this money into my money. And I noticed that whatever he gave me, it was like a 20 and like some singles, something like that. And at that point, now I'm calling him. He's not answering. But then it dawned on me later why he was holding that big piece of ice, that if I decided to count it in front of him, I was going to get fucking smacked with that thing. I didn't stop me. And then the one time I almost got busted, police watched me do a deal. They didn't see it, but they saw it. You know what I mean? You're right. I did it outside of a mall, the same mall that I had that job at. I pulled up to the back. It was somebody who worked inside of the mall. I pulled up to the back. They came out of the back door. They sat in my car. We did our thing. She went back in. I left. Now, this was when Dr. Dre just came out with headphones, I think. So I was on my right. So I was on my way out, and I thought, let me get some headphones. So I turn back around and I go. And the next thing I know, I look in my rear view, and it's like a Cavalier. Not a police squad car, but it was like a Cavalier with lights on. And it was right on my ass. So I'm like, "Oh shit, let me pull over so these people can go, this guy can go around me." So I started pulling to the side, and I look back in the side view, and the door's already open. Like, we're still moving and their door's open. So I stop and they come up, and like I rolled my window down like this much. And I was like, "Hello?" Meanwhile, that song, what is it? Riding Dirty was out, right? So that came up while they were there. I rolled the window down a little bit, scared off my ass. I'm 17, scared out of my ass. I roll the window down. And he's like, "Get out of the car, get out of the car." And I'm like, "Ah!" I open the door. My seatbelt is still on. I open the door, and the guy drags me out of my seat, guns drawn. Guns are out, and they say, "We saw what you did." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." And they end up searching the car, and they didn't find anything. But at that point, they had my ID. Obviously, they knew saw my driver's license. They know where I live and everything like that. So for like a handful of days after that happened, police were in my neighborhood every single day, like on each corner.
Really?
Just watching. If I left, they'd follow me. And I'm not sure how long that lasted, maybe like a week or something like that. But even when that happened, still didn't stop. Slowed me down, but still didn't stop.
Wow.
That was one of the scariest moments of my life, because they didn't find any drugs in there, but there were drugs in there. Lot of
no, I remember this story very vividly because you had called me like after it happened, or I think you came over and you were like, "Dude, you gotta fucking hear the story," and you told me all about it.
Right, like it was a joke. I probably told it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, dude. We were laughing.
Yeah.
We were like, those fucking idiot cops. Like, the idea that your life, and this goes. I think this is a great point. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for making this. The idea that your life was probably going to be over at that point. Because if they had found anything, you were fucked.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I don't even
you were
know.
fucked.
I never looked up what I would have been charged with. I had something like, I think it was like 80. I have the number 89 in my head. I think there were 89 e-pills in the vehicle at that time.
Probably because you were picking up 200 to 300 at a pop anyway.
Right. And I'd bring them along with me because, I'm never going to get pulled over. I'm 17. I'm smart. I would have been in big trouble.
Your life could have been over. You didn't even think of it. And I mean, when you're that age, like, you don't really think of it. That's not really like something that's unique to you.
Right.
But we just laughed about it for fucking hours. Like, just getting stoned, just laughing, like, ha, ha, ha. Because at that point, what other option or possibility was there?
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just this is it. Yeah, probably gonna ruin my life, but who gives a shit, right? You might not have understood the gravity of the situation, but you also understood that what you're doing was wrong.
Right.
But that didn't fucking matter because, like you said, you're fucked. You're fucked. You're fucked no matter what. No matter what you do, you're fucked. So am I gonna be broke working at Nathan's fucked? Or am I going to be chameleonaire riding dirty fuck? I'm going to go with riding dirty
Exactly.
fuck. I'm going to pick that one every fucking time.
Right.
So I feel you, man. Okay, so I just want to say we're 50 minutes into this, and we have not talked about adjusting, I think, for more than a second. Which, now, I will say, I have learned a lot about you, and, I thought I knew everything. This, so far, has been really interesting. I am going to go into something that I know about, and I'm excited for you to talk about. Unless there's anything else you want to,
No,
say.
bring it on. Yeah. Let's get off the drug talk.
Yeah. Let's do. The last episode and a half has been nothing but drugs. Okay. So we're switching over. All right. We both don't do any drugs. All right. Sorry, audience. Get over it. Get a life.
Yeah, and just to preface that, I'm so far removed. Jelly obviously is. I'm sorry, I just called you Jelly. Chris Stanley is obviously far. I mean, the guy's eating tofu sandwiches now, but with no bread. But I'm even to the point now where I've had an issue with my foot, and I had some leftover oxycodones. But even that, every day I need an hour to go back and forth with myself to figure out whether or not it's like I think it's a Tylenol 3, right? It's oxycodone and acetaminophen. I need like an hour or two of like back and forth in my head just to figure out if the pain in my foot is enough to justify that, or if it's not, I'm just being a little bitch.
I know exactly what you mean.
Because I don't want to slow down. That's I've taken them a couple times, but I know that if I take them, I can't. The only times I've taken is like before bed. Because I know if I take it earlier, I'm going to be sluggish and I can't, and then it's going to combat with my anxiety. So it's going to trigger my anxiety because I can't move fast enough. And then I want to move fast enough, but I can't move fast enough. And then my brain just goes crazy.
Yep. It's funny you say that because, in the drug and alcohol fellowship that I'm in to be sober. One of the things that, my sponsor lets me do, like, if I had a foot procedure last year when I was about like 6-7 months sober, and they gave me like pain pills for it. They're like, hey man, this is gonna suck for you. Here's some pain pills. And I was never a pain pill guy. I never did any of that shit. But it was weird to, like, number one, like you said, have that conversation in my head of like, does this pain justify this, or am I just trying to get stoned right now?
Right.
I was having that question. And also, this is at the time when I was like, I had dropped about 150, 160 pounds. So like, I wanted to keep fucking going. I wanted to keep fucking moving. I was like on the fucking sprint to, get down to like my goal weight that was set by a doctor. And I didn't want to slow down at all. I just wanted to keep going. So I feel, I relate fully. Yeah. But anyway, we're done with the drug talk. No more drug talk. No one's doing drugs. Okay. So I think this is the reason for the season, man. And I think the best way to do it is just this. How did you find claims adjusting? How did you find insurance adjusting? I know you've told this story a million times. I want you to break this down for our audience and really go into it, man, because this is an insane story, and I'm gonna go take a fucking lunch break while you tell this, because this is really good. But please go on,
Yeah.
man.
So how? Yeah. So the question is, how did I come across this independent adjusting, this business where you could do really well, make comparable, income as a a middle level or attorney or doctor.
Which now I would say you are one of well, probably the best one that I know, like the best adjuster.
I'm the most known. I don't want to say. I don't want to say I'm the best at.
You wouldn't, but I would, right? Like I would. Like, all right, best known adjuster. You've made this your life. It's changed your life.
Right.
Like, how did you go from restaurant drug dealer to what we see now?
I met a guy at a bar. That's
Nice.
that's the start of it. I always like starting with that. Yeah, I met a guy at a bar. So it was I worked at the bar. I had a pretty decent gig at that time. Again, early 20s. I had just moved back from Florida, right? So I had just moved back from Florida, but I wanted to get back down there, and I found a job. I was working at, it's closed now, but at a Wyndham Hotel, and I got a spot there, and I was trying to work my way up to food and beverage director, right? So they hired me on as a bartender, and it was a pretty good gig because I was a bartender, but I made like an hourly wage too. And it was the hotel itself had a conference center in there, so they would get groups in there, and when groups weren't in there, we get a little bit of business. Um, but then when there would be a group in there, you could do real well. Like I had prior to that, I think like my best nights, like other than a few one-off, like couple $100 nights when I was working behind a bar and something happened. I mean, a really good night for me in another restaurant would be like $150, maybe $200. I think there was like, yeah, a couple times I made over 300, but that was few and far in between. I mean, my biggest day there was like $2,300 as a bartender. Like, and it was just, yeah, yeah. And I think the day before that, it was, the record was 22. So I did 2,200 one day, 2,600 the next day. Yeah. And a lot of it, and back in those days too, a lot of it wasn't cash, which was unfortunate. A lot of them, they would charge it to their room, charge it to credit cards, business cards, especially if it's a large group that's coming in, they throw it on business cards. And so management and everybody could see how much I was bringing in. So we had this big group in those days in particular. We had those big days, and they're like, "What is happening?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, come on." But so I was working at this bar, doing well for myself, trying to move up, and it was August, and hurricane or tropical storm Irene came through. So tropical storm Irene came through, did whatever it did, caused some damage. It was off the radar for me. I remember I worked the day that Irene came in, and I couldn't get home from work that day because roads were flooded. I had to actually go back, which I almost couldn't make it back because of all the flooding. I had to go back to the hotel, and they gave me a room to stay in for the night. So so then a couple days later, we get more people are staying at the hotel, right? We know, and these people, as we know them now, those are catastrophe adjusters. These are insurance adjusters. They're working on a 1099 basis. They're independent contractors, and they're coming in and they're staying at the hotel and they're handling claims there. So during that, so they would handle claims there, and as you could expect, they're probably doing pretty well. As we know now, they're doing well for themselves, right? They're on cat deployment, hurricane deployment, and they're making a lot of money, right? I don't know that. All I know is that they're coming into the hotel, and after the day's over with, they're coming down to the bar and they're having drinks. Um, so in that process, I started meeting a couple guys. Now, I'd meet other people during this job inside of other industries, and I've gotten a few propositions before. We've had pharma people come in. I've had pharmaceutical reps come in, and they say, you should look into this. This is a really good one. But like, I thought the pharmaceutical people were kind of snooty, so I didn't care. Like, that wasn't me. And I had I had one guy that was in finance that didn't give me a big opportunity like outright, but was very nice to me, and I was nice to him. I thought he was a very respectable guy, and he said, "Man, if this doesn't work out for you, like, I would totally, I'll find something for you." I had that opportunity to get out, but I was unsure of it. And then we have these adjusters coming in, right? I remember the first guy that came in, he worked for a company, Crawford and Company, very large company. And he was from Atlanta, Georgia. I forgot his name. But he came in and he's sitting at the bar. And first of all, this guy would get shit faced. But like they're there for an extended period of time. And eventually this other guy started coming in who was working for Pilot, another huge company. His name was Jamie, and he was from South Carolina. I went to Clemson. I've always tried to find these people. But then they're coming in. Now they're there for an extended period of time and they're coming to the bar. Now we're getting to know each other. And these are like blue collar, basically like blue collar dudes, right? The guy from Atlanta was a little bit older, definite blue collar guy, straightforward personality that I enjoyed. Then the other guy, Jamie, is coming in. He was a younger guy. I think he was probably mid-30s, mid-late 30s, something like that. Went to Clemson and like a little bit of a party streak, but he's calm now. People that I enjoy talking to. And then there were other people in the background too. So, we're getting to know each other, and eventually they start saying like, you should talk to, my manager about getting into this. And I remember the one guy from Atlanta pulling this manager in, and the manager would sit there and he's like, tell him about this whole thing. And the guy was just like arms crossed, like, yeah, and just didn't want to talk about it. Right. Which I thought was weird. But the overall, what everybody was saying was that this business, you get into it, you could travel around the country, make a couple $100,000 in like a couple months. And that was like, to me, I was like, wait a minute. I don't quite like, how much of an exaggeration is this? So at that point in my life, I didn't have much going on. I was doing odd jobs here and there during the day. And at night I was hitting the bar. I was managing, looking over the bar. Right. That was it. That's my 10-year plan at that point. And I had already, I think around that time, like I said in the beginning, I was trying to become a food and beverage director. But even at that time, I was struggling with the idea that a food and beverage director made approximately $60,000 to $70,000 a year. That's what it was. The guy that was in that position now was on his way out. He hated the job. And I knew at some point, I would be, in line for it. But then it's like, what am I working for? I'm working for $70,000 a year. Is that my ceiling? So I'm struggling with that idea. And these guys come in and saying that a couple $100,000 a year. And so at around that time, I was still doing, a little bit of blow at that time. And I remember one day I'm sitting, and there's nothing more depressing. You could probably attest to this. And sitting in your own house doing coke by yourself. Just by yourself. Because cocaine, if you've never done it, it's a very it can be a very social drug. You do cocaine, it's fun to do it with other people because you get chatty and you talk about nonsense. You do it by yourself, not because you have great conversations with yourself. It's because you're running from a feeling, right? A feeling that cocaine helps numb, right? And it doesn't matter if nobody's there. And plus, if nobody's there, you don't have to share. So I'm in my house and I'm doing it, and I start thinking, your mind's going a million miles an hour. And I'm like, what about that thing that guy was talking about? What about the cat adjusting thing? What's that guy talking about? So I start doing some research on it, and I remember, and I'm like I'm in front of my laptop, like, what does all of this mean? What does all of this mean? And I'm reading what people online have written that completely supported everything that these guys have been saying. And I'm reading it in multiple different websites. And now I'm toying with this. Now you've gotten this like too good to be true thing, right? You've kind of made this discovery that you have in your life that you thought in the very beginning, once you heard this thing, you thought this is too good to be true. It's bullshit. Whenever something's too good to be true, it's bullshit. But like, you don't understand the perspective that your perspective is off, right? It's not that it's too good to be true. It's just that it's true. You think it's too good, but it's just true. That's all it is. I mean, if you said that, somebody could say, hey, you could start a business and make $1 million a year. That's too good to be true. It's not. That's true. You could, or you could suck at it. Either or. It all depends on you. So now I'm at this point where now I'm starting to get overwhelmed with supporting information. And it's like, yeah, you can do it. All these different websites. And now I'm like battling in my head. Is this it? Is this legit? If I say that this is bullshit, and all these sources, the guys that I've met over the last couple weeks are full of shit, and every single website that I'm reading, different website, different writer, if I say that all of this is full of shit too, am I kidding myself, or am I kidding myself and preparing to walk away from a great opportunity? Or is this the opportunity that people talk about getting and having to double down on? So at that point, I kind of decided, well, what do I have to lose? We talked about it before. What do I have to lose? What do I got going on right now that I'm going to lose if I pursue this and I fail? Am I going to lose my bartending job? I'll get another fucking bartending job. This is bartending job number 50. You know, am I going to be able to find a job that pays me $7.50? I think I was making $10 an hour on top of my tips. Am I going to be able to find a job like that? Maybe not. Maybe it's like $5 an hour, $5 difference. That's not that big. What do I have to lose? So timeline wise, so that was in August. That was in August of 1 year. So by that following March, I was officially licensed. I was a licensed adjuster. I went through the training course. I stuck to it. I went through fingerprinting, background check, everything like that. I was able to do it. And then by that following March, I was finally in it. And then I found myself at that point in a position that everybody else, and this is part of the reason why I started Just University, I found myself in a position where I didn't know what to do next. I had the license, and I just didn't plan that far ahead. I didn't realize that there's way more to it than just getting your license, because now you're not an employee, you're a business, and now you basically have a business license in a way. And then so I start reading up, I go online, and I'm like, looking up, what do I do next? Resources at that time are very limited. And so like then I start reading like all these horror stories, like, yeah, it's oversaturated. There's too many people doing it. You'll be lucky if you go out one time a year, never leave, and blah, blah, blah. Don't get blacklisted. All these horror stories. And I'm like, oh my God, this was a failure. Where were these websites 6 months ago? What happened? So yeah, so that was the very start. Obviously, then a little bit of luck and hard work. A couple months later, late that summer, I finally got a gig working in a call center, actually, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what those other guys were doing.
So wait, hold on. So at that point, like, you're reading these websites, it's all pretty much like, you're kind of fucked. You shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
Like, you don't throw in the towel though. Like, what did you end up doing? Because at that point, in my opinion, if I didn't have you to show me a very direct way on what to do,
Yeah.
and I had seen it, I'd have been like, well, man, I'm just gonna go back to Wyndham.
Right,
I'm gonna go right back.
Right. So
like, what was the difference?
So there was a little bit of a catalyst in between there that I skipped over. So that was like March, April. Now I'm discovering that, this is more complicated, and now all these people are saying that, giving me reasons to suggest that what I did was a mistake. Right? I'm believing that the people that have not succeeded in the endeavor that I'm going down, I'm believing that those people, their opinions are gospel. In the very beginning, I went after the good stories, and I believe that, and that's what led me to make the decisions that I made. And then now that I'm struggling, I'm only, confirmation bias, I guess, a subtle confirmation bias. Now I'm reading all these horror stories, and I'm thinking, well, if these people failed, I'm probably going to fail too. And so at that point, I don't want to say that I threw in the towel, but I definitely began to take it less seriously. So at that point, I was thinking, well, I lived in Florida. I'm from New Jersey, lived in Florida for a while. Now I was back in New Jersey on like a sabbatical sort of thing. But then I was thinking, well, if I want to get work based on the things that I'm reading, I gotta go back to Florida. I got to get back to Florida, and I want to be back in Florida anyway. So I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to find work down there. I didn't have any work lined up. I just figured that my chances were better in Florida. It was completely naive. So I had that in my head. Then by that July, I already had a lease signed and everything like that. I was going to be moving to Gainesville, Florida. All right. So I had a lease signed and everything like that. And then everything got thrown upside down when I found out that the girl who I had just been seeing on the side, not like on the side, but like very like, casually, was pregnant. She became pregnant. Yeah, with my kid. So so she became pregnant, and that was on July 17th. July 17th of 2012. So at that point, then everything is different. Everything changed. Florida lease out the window. And at that point, that day, I had no job, no job whatsoever because I had already quit the Wyndham job in preparation to leave for Florida, right? Because I was gonna, make a bunch of money in Florida. I was convinced. So I already quit that job. Now I find out that I'm gonna be a father. So now I'm not going to Florida. This whole idea that I was gonna go to Florida and somehow make something of this whole thing that I had no really drive in, that's completely gone. Now I'm staying in New Jersey, and now I'm gonna be a father, and I have nothing set up, and I have debt. I have a ton of debt at that point. Debt that I had been carrying for months, months and months and months. I think I had like $15,000 in credit debt right there, which was at that time a lot, to me. So she's pregnant. Now, that right there is what the biggest catalyst that I had in my life to quit the bullshit. Because at that point, I was still going out, having drinks, partying, and stuff like that. But once I found, I kind of got caught, with my pants down 2 times, So, so I got caught there, and I'm thinking, so this is it. In 9 months, I'm going to be a father. And as it is in this moment, I don't have any reason to believe that I can be a father. So what am I going to do? What is the next move? Do I find the next like job? Do I just get a job right now and start chipping away extremely slowly at this debt that I have so that when this kid is born, hopefully I saved up enough so they could have a bassinet? Like what? Now, at that point, that was when I really started focusing on all of the failures that I had that weren't overtly failures, but how at that moment I had severely failed to plan and failed to have things already set up. I felt like I was significantly behind schedule in everything in my life. At that point, I was getting ready, and although I wasn't really saying it out loud, I was getting ready to go to Florida, and I was going to get fucked up every day. I was going to be outside of University of Florida. I was going to be moving in with a close friend of mine. It was going to be a good time. Florida part 2, we're going bananas. That was the plan. And in the back of that plan was maybe do something with this independent adjusting thing. So once I figured that, once that news got dropped on me, it was a fire under my ass. And I knew it was either I had 2 options: find another bullshit job or double down on this independent adjusting thing and make something fucking happen. So that was July. So at middle of July. So at that point, it's marketing. Market. I understood the concept that if I wanted to get, all of a sudden, I understood the concept that if I wanted to get work here, nobody was going to give me work if they didn't know who I was. I understood that. So I needed to make sure that people knew who I was, who knew about me. So I started hitting the handful of companies that I knew at that time, and I'm hitting them up, taking every opportunity I had. And it was that August, I had agreed to go to some class in Louisiana. Not so much, the class, it was a workshop. Not so much just to go to the workshop and learn, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to get face to face with people at this company who could give me money and fucking, I don't know what, just try my best to make a lasting impression there. And then I got a little bit lucky. So that was when at the same time this class was going on in Louisiana, Hurricane Isaac was coming up and it was going to hit Louisiana. So they canceled the class. Or no, I'm sorry, they didn't cancel the class. But they said the class is still on. And my flight got canceled. So I was going to fly down there. That got canceled. So then I'm like, fuck, I guess I can't make it. And then they sent a message saying that the class is still on, but they may be deploying people that still show up. So if you showed up, you can make money. My flight's canceled, and all I've got is a shitty, Mitsubishi Lancer. I guess it wasn't so shitty at the time. But the flight's canceled. The class is still on, and they said that if you make it, if you're one of the few, however many people that do, there's a chance that you're going to get deployed, which is we're going to send you out on assignment. And so I heard that. I'm like, get the fucking car ready. So I packed that up, and this is like 2 days. This is like 2 days before the thing. I was like, time to go. So I packed the car up and I hit the road. And I can still remember it, as I'm coming in, this is in Hammond, Louisiana. As I'm coming in, I go over a hill, right? And I'm getting close. I'm getting like I'm a couple hours out. I go over a hill, and at the top of that hill, I meet Hurricane Isaac, and it's black. And I'm like, and I'm in a 4-cylinder shit can. And so I say, well, we're going in. And I call my parents up, and I'm like, listen, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the situation. I'm about to drive through a hurricane right now. There's no fucking stopping me. I'm going through. I'm 2.5 hours away. I'm going in. And I remember driving 10 feet visibility. The side of the car is getting hit with limbs. And I'm like, we're fucking making it. And I make it all the way to the hotel. Hurricane stat. It wasn't like a big hurricane. I don't know, one something. I make it to the hotel. I remember banging on the door. There was somebody in there, and they let me in. They said, we got your room, but just there's no water's out and electricity's out. I was like, I got water in the car. And so I get in there, and I just sat at the window in this dark room, just looking out. And I saw thankfully at the, shout out to, Chinese restaurants. I saw everything shut down except for the Chinese restaurant across the highway. I saw, I guess they had a generator. Their light was on. There were people outside. So I shot over there. I ate. And, I was out on assignment for 2 weeks after that. And then that unfortunately ended. And I thought, fuck, I'm in a bad spot again. But then got lucky on October 29th, that same year, Superstorm Sandy hit New Jersey. And then I got a gig there with a different company. And that's it, man. Been moving with that ever since, with a feverish pace to never run out.
I never knew the hurricane story. Man, that is fucking inspiring. That's impressive. Like you're hitting roadblocks at every point in time, right? You're getting hit with news of a pregnancy, which I think for most people would make you not double down. Most people would not double down on something that they were like, this might work.
You got to be rational.
They're gonna double down.
Right.
Yeah. They're gonna be rational. They're gonna double down on the bar job.
Right.
They're gonna go back hat in hand to Wyndham and say, hey, look, I made a little bit of a mistake here.
Right.
Why don't you bring me back at
I'm
7?
gonna be a dad now. Please help me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, instead, you fucking doubled down. You left in a car, which I thought the story was when you're going up the hill, the car dies. That's what I thought. I thought that's where that was going. I was like, oh, yeah, I know that Lancer. That Lancer was the fucking gathering mobile.
Yeah.
Like, that shit's going to die. And from what I know, that's still going strong. Wow, man. No, I think that lends to your whole drive and motivation. Like, it's a testament to it. Like you said fuck it. You were like, no,
had no choice.
We're not doing this. Well, see, here's the thing. I would argue you did have a choice.
Right.
And you made obviously the right one, but most people would not have done what you did.
Right.
And because most people would not have done what you did, you have succeeded in ways that most people won't. And it's impressive, man. And again, this isn't like, how cool fucking Jeremy Reddick is. It's just, it's a fact that like all this that you've accomplished and like just a little bit, not even a little bit, the lot of barriers and shit that got put in your way very early on, you were like, no, I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it. And it worked out.
Yeah, man. It's just like we talked about before, man. It's when you don't, I understand what you're saying, that I had a choice, and legitimately I did have a choice. I could have took the secure, the quote unquote secure route. I could have got a job. I could have went back to Wyndham. I could have found me a 9-to-5 or something like that where I clock in, get my paycheck at the end of the week, maybe get some benefits out of the deal. And that's it. And felt secure in having a child. But I knew that the ceiling was there. I knew that if I did that, I'd be trading dollars for hours, 100%, and there would be a ceiling involved. And the best that I would be able to provide after that child, for that child, would be whatever's left after taxes and expenses, which is going to be this much. And this much is how much I could provide for my kid. And that wasn't acceptable for me. And I had just learned that I could do really well with this independent adjusting thing. And the evidence was there. There's evidence you could fail. There's evidence you could succeed. The question was, for me at that time, which side am I going to land on? If I'm going to fail, if I think that I'm going to fail, if I don't think that I can succeed in doing this, I need to get that fucking job. I need to get a job and just be happy to be working. Just be happy to be collecting a paycheck and be happy to give my child a few dollars after taxes and expenses. I didn't want that. I couldn't settle for that. That is settling. And I couldn't do it. So I knew that in order for me, the most obvious thing, I had a license, the most obvious option that I had to be able to provide something substantial to my child when they're born and to be able to work towards things as they get older, to be able to give them money for college, to be able to even just send them to a good preschool, to be able to put good clothes on their back, to be able to have them grow up in some sort of environment of abundance rather than the environment that I grew up in. In order for me to do that, I need to succeed in this. So there, to me, you say that I had an option, but to me, in that moment, I had no option. There was no turning back. I was burning the fucking boats behind me as I moved towards this goal. There was no going back. There was no option. When that hurricane was coming up and I looked at it, the idea of, oh shit, I should pull over never even came across my mind. There was no pulling over. I had to dart right through that fucking thing. And I had to make it to that class. I had to make it to that class, and that class lasted all. I don't think that class even went on. Everybody got in there. They had a late start, and they said, who wants to work? And then some people went home, and some people stayed, and my fucking hand was as high up as it could go because I knew that that was my chance. Because back then, it was no different than it is now. You know, experience, being able to say you work for somebody meant something big. And at that point, the offer that they sent, it was an hourly wage, but it was something like you got paid $38 an hour. You worked 40 hours at 38, and then you worked another 44 hours at time and a half. So it shook out to fucking way more than I was used to making. And at that point, it was like, I fucking did it. This is it. It didn't last that long. But at that moment, that was that little bit of taste, right? That's that first ecstasy deal. That's that first weed deal where you're like, oh shit, I just made a couple bucks right here just because I didn't give myself any other options to settle for anything else. And then once I had that, then and once that ended, you know, it was the anxiety came across where I don't have any options right now. I don't have anybody else lined up. I need to find people. I need to find people. I need to find people. And I just kept going. And like they always say, if you work hard enough, you get lucky. And I got lucky with Sandy.
Nice, man. I love that. I absolutely love that whole analogy you just did. That little taste, you know, is what made you keep going. That's awesome. I've been getting my girlfriend to watch The Sopranos lately, so I want to please indulge me while I psychoanalyze you with this next question.
Okay.
Do you think that and you already kind of touched on it, but I think that, you know, having a straightforward question on this and your answer could be great. Do you think that the way you grew up and the experiences you had as a kid, with, you know, like you and I grew up, I think, in the same type of environment, lower middle class, not a lot of options. Do you think that made you have a drive even more to not suscept your kid to that shit?
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I don't say that to be a slight against my parents, but you know, any parent, as a parent, I feel comfortable saying any parent knows that should know that they didn't do as good of a job as they should have done. Right. So, and I knew that was up to me too. You know, there's going to be things I'm good at. There's going to be things that I'm not good at. But the least I could do is work hard to try to mitigate as much bad shit as I can. I knew the things in my life that caused me to struggle with later on. I knew the things in my life that I didn't enjoy, and I wanted to avoid those at all costs. And I think that's most parents are going to do that. They're going to fail at some things, but they're going to get better at avoiding the things that they, was the most negative to them. Some of the things that were the most negative to me was where I grew up most of my life. I grew up in a trailer, from the age of like 9 or something like that up. I didn't want, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. No disrespect to people that live in a trailer, but when you're a little kid and not everybody around your town lives there's one trailer park in town and you live in it. I mean, maybe kids are a little bit different now, but back then they fucking weren't. They fucking weren't.
Especially when you're living in fucking New Jersey.
Right.
Like you're not living in like Alabama where, and again, maybe I'm being fucking offensive here, but like I'm assuming in Alabama, there's a lot of fucking trailer parks, not that big of a fucking deal.
Right.
But in Jersey, like, especially like in the area of Jersey that you grew up in, there's not fucking, like you said, there's not trailer parks everywhere.
Right. And that's the thing too. Yeah. The town that I was in that trailer park, I mean, even now, I just recently bought a house and I looked at houses in that town. I mean, they're big houses. It's a nice area to live, as long as you don't live in the trailer park. So
yeah.
So there was that, and then at that time, when she said she was pregnant, again, I had at that point, I don't live on my own. I'm living with my parents, and I have no job, and I'm in a trailer. My girlfriend, who became my girlfriend at that point, she was in a basement apartment. A probably 400 square foot basement apartment. I mean, she was probably paying $400 a month for. Certainly not big enough, in my opinion, for a child. I'm sure we've been in houses and seen worse things, but that was it. And now I'm having a kid, and that's the living situation we've got lined up right now. She had a job, didn't pay much. I had no job. She had an apartment, was the size of my current kitchen, and I'm getting set up to have a kid that's going to live in a situation just like I was, and that was a problem. So to get back to your question, the child, that is a huge motivating factor for me, not to subject my soon-to-be daughter to the bad things in my life. I don't want them to do drugs, so I want them to get into. There's a statistic that kids that are introduced to sports or certain extracurricular activities are significantly less likely to be introduced to drugs and things like that. And so that's a big part of me every day. I want to get them involved in activities, get them involved in different things, because I wasn't a part of it. I want to get them interested in education. I want to make it so that they have the best education and that they at least have that option to college if they want to do that. But at least they're not going to struggle like I did going through school. To be able to provide, man, to be a better provider than my parents were.
That's powerful, man. And how many kids do you have now?
I have 3.
My man is building a army and a legacy. That is great, man.
Yeah.
That is fuck yeah, man. So I think it's safe to. So all right, let's kind of like jump ahead, right? So you're in Louisiana. You get a little bit of taste of like that first like big fucking paycheck. You're like, shit, this is great.
Yeah.
Then Superstorm Sandy hits, and I know you did really well there, right? And then you start getting daily claims, and like we're gonna go through all this like really like intricate adjusting stuff. I really want to focus more on you and your thought process and all that. But yeah, I'm doing this for a reason. So you build up a little bit of an empire, right? Like like you're working really hard. You got a lot of jobs coming in. You're fucking crushing it. Your work ethic is the same, but now you're seeing results, right? Now you're like by all means, by all definitions, man, you're a successful businessman. You have this, and that's great. And like that's kind of where you are right now. You got 3 kids. You just said you bought a house. You're doing well, man. So I kind of want to get your perspective on some stuff. Do you now? Do you judge people who don't work hard?
Do I judge them?
Yes.
No,
No.
I don't think I
Okay.
do. No, I don't judge them. I mean, what do you mean by judge? I mean, I feel like I'm very good at detecting a hard worker very early on without having to see them. I don't know if I speak poorly of them.
Let me kind of reframe the question, I guess. Let me kind of reframe the question. Uh, I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of excuses on why they can't work, or why, not even that they can't work, but like why they can't succeed. You know, there's a lot of
Right.
reasons why people can't succeed. Um, it's people which, like us, with just shitty backgrounds,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's people who, they never had the opportunity. Like they never got that shot. They never did. Is something never worked right for them? Yada 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 yada. So, do you think that there is validity in that mindset enough to where it would justify not even trying?
No, never. Never. You know, there's anybody that's settling and doing something that they don't want. I mean, right there, you're just kind of subtly admitting that you could do better. But you kind of you trick yourself, right? Just like we did. Kind of trick yourself into thinking otherwise, that you can't, that you don't have any other options, that you should settle for this job because it's security and security's good and you want security, but there's no security in fucking anything. Let's be honest. You could get a 40-hour, 9 to 5 job and you could get fired in a heartbeat. Things could happen. Roadblocks are going to get put up. And unfortunate events are going to take place. There's no security in anything. That's life. That's just how it is. But people in general, I always look at people, and I have this thing where I guess maybe you could say judge, but I'll judge a person based on their personality if they're an employee or if they're not an employee. Like, I think about that. And that doesn't necessarily mean they are an employee somewhere or they're not an employee somewhere. You could run a business, but you're more of an employee. Or you could be an employee, but you really should be running a business, you know? But and I don't want that to sound like if you're an employee, you suck. That's not true. But some people are stuck not only stuck in an employee mindset when they don't need to be. I was, at times stuck in an employee mindset when I didn't need to be. And I think a lot of other people are too. The tough part is breaking out of that. The people that are stuck in that employee mindset, but they're afraid to do anything else. They're afraid to step out and actually take a chance and propose some maybe more greater than average risk onto themselves, right? So, yeah, I don't look badly on them or anything like that, but there's certainly that case where people just trick themselves into thinking less of themselves. And I think maybe you were in that same position back when you spoke about when you worked at a call center. At that point, you're only going to achieve what you're worth in the end. If you don't think that you're worth very much, good luck convincing somebody to pay you more than you're worth. They're not going to. They're going to pay you what you think you're worth. That's it. If you don't think that you are better than a minimum wage call center job, and that's all you're looking for because you have some sort of background in it and you don't want to do anything that you don't know, and although you may complain about the money you get at that particular job, you kind of subtly accept it because that's all you know, and you don't want to learn anything else because you don't want to make a mistake and you don't want to convince somebody of something, then that's all you're worth. That you're worth $13 an hour or whatever it is. The people that succeed are the people that believe that their worth is set to a certain number, or indefinite. It's an indefinite number. So if somebody's listening to this right now and they're not happy with the money that they're making, if they feel like they're in a job or even own their own business, but what they're earning is less than what they feel like they are actually worth, you're wasting your life sticking there, staying there, going with the motions and waiting for maybe something to happen. That's a waste of a life right there. If you've got a job right now and you're happy with the money you're making, it affords you to pay your bills and you go on boat trips and whatever blows your hair back, great. That's a success story right there. If you are truly, truly content and you're not lying to yourself, that's a success story. But if you're not, if you come home pissed off and then they didn't give you the hours that you wanted and it's fucked up that so and so got promoted over you and you're still waiting for the bonus from last Christmas, you're not getting paid what you want to get paid. You're not getting paid what you feel like you're worth. And if you feel like or in a situation, I'm sure everybody's heard it at least a dozen fucking times in their life, that they're in a job and somebody else is getting treated better, somebody else is getting paid more. You run the place. Nobody's a better worker than you are, and they just don't fucking see it. Get a new fucking job. Start your own place. If you're that good at your job, start a business that's surrounded by what you do. If you're working HR and you feel like you're getting stepped on, start an HR related business. If you feel like you're an employee and you don't want to take on all the intricacies of running that business, fine. But it's time to up your fucking worth. Find a different company that's going to pay you based on what you're worth. And you're not going to get to that position unless you step out of your comfort zone, you take a new interview for a job that's going to pay you more, and then you get in front of that person and you convince them that, hey, listen, I want you to know right off the bat that I am not like any of the other people you interviewed before. I am way different, and I'm going to be paid differently. And if that's uncomfortable for you, if you have a set number and that number is less than what I know that I'm worth, then with much respect, I'm going to be leaving. But if you want the best fucking person working for your company, and I would even drop the F-bomb. I don't give a fuck. If you want the best fucking person that's going to be a part of your company, we need to make a deal right now. I would drop it just like that. And if they say no, you just move on to the next one and you start playing the numbers game, because eventually you're going to meet somebody that's going to say, you've got passion and we need passion.
That is inspiring. I want to say first off that I did something similar about a little less than 2 years ago when I went in for this office job because I needed a job. I definitely didn't do the pay thing because they were like, it's a set pay. And I was like, all right, well, I'll take this on the chin.
Pay.
Yeah. I'll just take this on the chin. But I did that in regards to like, look, I'm different. Like, I know my shit in regards to this job. You're not going to have anyone else like me. And the guy hired me on the spot. He was like, you're hired.
That's it.
And I'm like,
the thing is, nobody says, very few people will say that.
Yeah, no one says that. But aside from that bullshit, what you just said is up your worth.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think that's great. And I think that's what people, they don't look at it as that. They look at it as, again, and this might become a running theme in this show, it's giving up that security. It's risking that security for something better. And then it's very easy to weigh those options in your head and go with, I'm just going to stick with what I got. Because what I got is better than nothing. Right? At least that's the mindset. The mindset is what I got is better than nothing. And people are scared to up their worth. You already touched on this, man, but I got to ask it. In regards to upping your worth, in regards to making shit better for your life, for everything, what is your biggest motivation in life?
Oh, it's my kids, man. That's my biggest motivation. I mean, honestly, if something happened and, I hate to say it, if something happened and I lost my kids and just they weren't a part of my life, I mean, even I would have to sit and really think, what am I doing this for? I mean, I don't want to say I'd stop with, my business or whatever, but it's tough to say that I would still go and do business with any sort of passion. I mean, that's where most of my money goes. Any money that I have, it goes towards them and different things. I mean, I've got boxers, right? Boxer shorts that I'm down to like 4 pairs and 2 briefs because the shorts keep ripping because they're fucking old, right? I make a bunch of money a year and I'm running out of underwear. I just don't do it. I recently signed up to a clothing subscription service because I don't if that box doesn't show up in the mail, I'm not going clothes shopping. I don't need, why would I spend money at Macy's when I could put that money towards piano lessons, right? My kid, 100% my kids. It was the catalyst of the whole thing, and it just kind of grew from there. Everything I do. I mean, the my business entity is has my daughter's middle name, my first daughter's middle name in it. Everything I do is driven based off of that, on this pie in the sky sort of idea that no matter what, I mean, I've got 3 lives that I need to look out for, right? And it might at some point be 4, it might be 5, but I have all these people to look out for. Once they get older, I want to be able to give them options. I don't want to have to say, listen, you got to either go to college or you got to find yourself, wiggle your way into a good job, or you need to start a business. I don't want to have to limit them to that. What I would love to do is say, hey, this is the business that I've been building ever since you were born. And if you want to be a part of it, you could be a part of it. And then you could even potentially, at a certain point, take over the whole thing when I can't do it. And this will be yours. It's already started. And this could be your thing. If I take the money that I earn from there and invest it in property and buy real estate, the house that I'm in right now, for one example, I want to be able to have that house, put it in a trust, and have that as an asset that can be carried over to them. So that's one less thing that they need to start with. And hopefully at that point, mortgage is paid and everything like that. And maybe they could say, hey, listen, take a mortgage out on this property, go buy another property. That's the start. That's how you're going to start right there. And then they grow from there, something bigger. Because at a certain point, they're probably going to have kids. At least one of them are going to have kids too. And what would I rather have for my grandchildren? Have them start from scratch or have them resume something that was started 2 generations prior? That is the best way for them to grow. I want to build generational wealth for them. And one thing that will never get them to the point where they can benefit from generational wealth is if I give myself options, if I give myself the option to be complacent with a paycheck. That goal is never going to be realized once I get complacent. And that's why it is a constant struggle. I mean, I have, even right now, as we do this podcast together, I mean, I have, and this is nothing new to me, I have just a long list of things that need to get done. And I'm constantly moving. It adds to the anxiety, it adds to the stress of my daily life. But listen, I'm looking out for my great grandkids at this point. And I need to get to that point where they'll be taken care of. And I'm not going to stop till they do.
That's fucking inspiring, dude. I wasn't going to ask this, but I'm going to ask it because you showed us the list. How do you juggle? Like, I don't have kids. All right. I don't have kids. I have a girlfriend and I have 2 dumb dogs. That's what I got. Okay. And between work and my errands that I run, taking care of the dogs, giving them a life that is what I would hope that they like, and spending time with my girlfriend, talking to you, talking to all my other friends, yada yada yada. I don't have a fucking minute left in the day, it seems. How do you juggle such a busy work life schedule? Because you work, again, this is not to blow smoke up your ass, but you're the hardest fucking worker I know. How do you juggle all of it? What do you do?
Well, it's not easy.
Yeah,
I mean, first of all, it's not easy, and it definitely took a lot of trial and error. And I failed at it. I failed at doing it properly for the longest time, for a long time. I mean, so to kind of go back to the adjusting thing, in the very beginning, before you came around, before I decided to get somebody else involved, I was doing it first full year, made over like $100,000. And I said, wow, we could really do this. I could really like build that future with this job. So then the next year I found more work. I found better work. I went over 200,000. Then the next year I did high 200,000, and I kept going and I kept taking on work. But what was happening outside of my peripheral vision was that I was neglecting time with my kids. Now, at that time, their mother, she wasn't working, couldn't get her to get a job. And then we just kept having kids. So every time we'd have a kid, I just kind of got to take on more work, got to build up, got to take on more. And the next thing I know, I'm a few years into it. And I think it was the year prior to you coming in. I was a few years into it. And that entire year, all I did basically was work. From waking up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I would work until I got home about 6 o'clock at night. And I would do that not 5 days a week, over 6 days a week. I would take a day off once every 2 to 3 weeks. There was only a handful of days off the entire year. This was around the time that my second daughter was born. And I know that because one of the things that killed me was that I was not around for that first year. So that first year, their mother's mother, their grandmother, had moved in. And so her mother's mother basically was my second daughter attached herself to the mother and the grandmother, not me. She was not attached to me. And it was visible. It was obvious to me. I was working so fucking hard every single day for them, but they did, at least the second daughter, did not know really who I was, did not have an attachment towards me. And that year was one of the most profitable years that I had in the game. I worked, who knows, 100 hours, something like that, probably more a week. I had just enough time to grab a couple hours of sleep, cook dinner for everybody, because I was cooking dinner for everybody every night, and that's it. Maybe 30 minutes after dinner. So I hit that ceiling that year. The ceiling could be a little bit more, but I finally had hit, to me, the ceiling in independent claims adjusting. I think I made like $350,000 that year, something like that. So by the end of that year, I had to sit and ask myself a question. You made $350,000 that year. And if you might be listening to this, you might be saying to yourself, I'll do anything to make $350,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And I would have said the same exact thing. But at that point, once I finished, the year was over with, I was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted. I was physically exhausted. I put on weight. And my new daughter, my daughter at that time, barely knew who I was. The other daughter was detaching as well. So the one thing that mattered to me more than anything else, my daughters, my family, was falling at the wayside in exchange for money. And I was really realizing that. So I had to ask myself, so I always think of it like playing a video game. After you play a video game, you beat the game. What do? Do you play the video game again? Beat it again? Probably not. It's boring to you. You've already seen it. You know what happens. Maybe you'll play it again later on, but you're not going to play it, just resume right back to level 1. You're not going to do that. So that was the point that I was at. Was I ready to play the game again? Or was it time to find a different fucking game to play? Or maybe a game that is equally as fun, but makes more money, And that was actually the dawn of what later became Adjuster University, is because I needed to find something that I can do that has the potential to make the money that I think that I'm worth, the money that I know my family is entitled to. Something that could do that while not pulling me away as much as it did before. And that began the transition right there, because money's great, but there's so much money that you could be making in this world. There's no shortage of money. Money's out there. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to find it. But to watch your daughter or to watch your son grow up from infancy to 1 year old, to be able to have that lifelong connection, to be able to be a part of those precious moments, you don't get a second shot. You might have another kid later on and maybe you get it right that time, but you don't get a second shot at that time with that particular child of yours. You get one shot at it. And if you fuck that shot up enough, it's going to carry on with you the rest of your life. And I'm talking about this right now. She's older. She just had a birth. She just turned 7. So this was 6+ years ago, and I'm still talking about it right now. That's how fucking important it was to me at that time, to never let that shit happen again.
Would you say that is your biggest regret?
Yes. Putting money ahead of my family is my biggest regret. Even in the grand scheme of things, even for as short of a time as it was, that is certainly my biggest regret to this day.
Okay. And honestly, you know, the name of this podcast, Adjusting the Six Figures, we're talking about money, finances, but I think it's really fucking important that you mention that, because I myself, on a micro level, have been going through something similar, just with my girlfriend and my dogs, you know, on a micro level. I'm not trying to compare it to you, because number one, different level of money, but also different level of family, different level of responsibility, different level of commitments that you got to, you know, meet. And I do think that, you know, what you just said is, number one, fucking heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. But also, it really goes into the definition of like 6-figure mindset, not just your fucking bank account.
Right.
6-figure mindset.
At that time, I had a definite 6-figure financial situation going on, but the mindset was 5 figures. The mindset was scarcity. I had a scarcity mindset. If I don't accumulate,
You're living in fear.
Accumulate. If I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. That was a 5-figure mindset.
Living in fear. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
Which isn't going to get you anywhere. You know, being determined, having the work ethic, not being afraid to take a fucking risk. Mm-hmm. Different story than living in fear.
Right.
I'm going to ask you one more question. All right, because we are this, number one, this podcast is flying. Number two, we have gone in depth, and I love every fucking minute of it. But I have one last question for you, and I think this might get us to 45 extra minutes. But it's technically 2 parts, man. And I honestly can't wait to hear your answer. What is, in your opinion, single-handedly, the greatest piece of advice that you have received and you can give in regards to not only adjusting and career, but in life in general? If you had to boil everything down to like just its base fucking form, its simplest form, what is the greatest piece of advice you've ever received, and something that you can also give our audience and me?
Man, that's a tough question, because I got to, weed out all the bad advice I've gotten. You're lucky, you get a lot of bad advice in your life. You're lucky if you get good advice, and who knows what's good and bad when you get it. Here's a long-winded response to that.
Good.
It's advice that I was given when I was working in a restaurant. And it's advice that I would later be given later on after doing claims and working at Justice University and all that. And it comes up every now and then, and it's simple advice, but it's advice. It's something that's easily discarded. It's very natural for everybody to feel like they're good at different things. We've spoken about this. It's very easy for people to feel like they're good at certain things, and it's extremely easy for us people to convince ourselves that we can do something, even if we're not good at it or we can't. Because it's very hard for us, I think, as creatures, to accept the fact that we're not good at something, and we're not, and that we're flawed. Right? Nobody wants to know. Nobody wants to admit that they're flawed. Nobody wants to admit that they're not good at something. Right? We'll glaze over that fact. Nobody wants to admit that stuff because it brings pain. Right? You're not good at something. You're not going to be in the NFL. You're not going to be a basketball player. There are certain things that just, it's not in your deck of cards. You're not good at, right? I mean, I have businesses. I am not a great business person. I'm just, and I've said this so many times, I am not a great business person. I just have an ability to not give a shit about risk. Now, as I get older, I get better at mitigating risk, right? But there's still so many things that I'm not good at. And the advice that I was given when I was in a restaurant is very simple and not exactly in the context that I'm using it here, but a little bit it is, and that's to get help. And I'm sure you could agree with that too. It's to get help. If you're struggling with something, get help. It is not that hard to get help. And most of the time, you don't have to pay for it either. But just get help. If whether you're trying to become an adjuster, get into our business and make the money that you read online when you did a Google search and you're doing blow in your room, whatever the case is, get help. Because if you don't know what you're doing, there's somebody out there that does. And you might get lucky. And if you show them enough value, right? If you show them value, they may be willing to help you reach your goals and get you where you want to go quicker. If you want to go to the grocery store right now and the grocery store is 10 miles away, are you going to say to yourself, well, I don't have any problems with walking, so I'm just going to walk? No, you're going to get in a car because a car is going to help you get there.
I would absolutely walk.
Well, if you can't, then you're going to find somebody with a car. You're going to get help because those are like things that are easy for us to find help for, right? Because it doesn't feel like we're flawed as much. But when it comes to your career, when it comes to making money, very few people want to admit they're doing something wrong. When it comes to running a business, very few people want to admit they're doing something wrong. But when you look at the people that are very successful, they're not doing it on their own. They're finding help. They're not hiring and staffing people on their own. They're not building their website on their own. They're not reviewing legal documents on their own. They're getting help. They're getting people that know what they're doing to assist them. And if they have to pay for it, they have to pay for it, but hopefully they don't. But the biggest thing, if anybody wants to get ahead, is to get help. If you're in a job right now, and what we spoke about earlier resonated with you, and you know you're not getting paid what you're worth, but you're having trouble breaking that toxic mindset and being able to take that chance because you have so many excuses why you shouldn't take that chance. And you have so many excuses why you should keep that job and why you should do all these things that kill you every morning or kill you every night. If you're struggling with that, just get help. Talk to somebody. Maybe it's this podcast. Maybe it's somebody else. But find somebody who is in the position that you want to be in. Provide value to them, which is in any fucking form. Show up to their office down the road with coffee. It doesn't matter. Do something for them so that they can do something for you. Find help. That is the best advice that I could give anybody. And it's so easy. It's such simple advice that, a certain percentage of people are going to hear this. They're going to say, yeah, well, that makes sense, but blank. But it's as simple as that. Just look for help. Anything you're struggling with right now. I struggle with lighting, which to me is stupid. I struggle with lighting and cameras. I struggle with all that stuff. So I get help. I get help from people who know their shit. I get help because I'm willing to admit I don't know. And it's easy for me because I can always say I'm a high school dropout at the end. When somebody comes by, I had a landscaper come by and they were like, yeah, so what were you thinking? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just want to be able to pull up to my house and say, yeah, my house looks great. Other than that, bro, I'm a high school dropout. And they're like, okay, I got you.
I fucking love that advice. I wasn't expecting that to be your answer. I didn't really know what to expect. I fucking love that. Not only do I 100% agree, but it's just, it is exactly what I personally have been basing my life off of for the last fucking 18 months.
And you know what? I want to build on that for 2 seconds more to also find a mentor. And when I say find a mentor, the best mentor I'm not saying send Jeff Bezos an email and see if he's going to mentor you, because anything less than that, you're swinging low. Mentors can come in any form. I could be your mentor and we may never meet, right? But you follow me, you listen to me, there's things that you gain. You don't need just one mentor either. You can have several mentors. All right. I have a couple mentors that I know. It doesn't mean that I'm showing up to their job every day with pen and paper, but it's just people I keep close and people that I listen to and people that I want to learn from because, again, they're in positions that I want to be in. Other than that, I could name a dozen mentors of mine who I've never met and they probably don't know who I am. And that's because that's a mentor is just somebody who you learn from and you keep them by you. They could be an author, it could be a speaker, it could be a business person that really doesn't write books or speak at events, but you follow them and you watch them and you want to progress along with them. You keep them in your mind because and that is huge. And that was a huge part with me too. My success got better once I started reading books and started keeping up on people that are much more successful than I am because I wasn't in a very successful group. I have an uncle that had a successful small, reasonably successful small business, but that's it. I don't know anybody else. I didn't know anybody that I could legitimately say was a mentor of mine, So I was just, I had friends like you when, back then, right? Back in the day, and the people who we would hang out with, people doing drugs and things like that. It's so hard to get ahead when you're in a negative environment. You need to keep your environment as clean and as positive as possible. If you want to be, and this goes back into admitting your flaws, very good advice. Never be the smartest person in the room. You want to be, you're going to learn the most when you're the dumbest person in that room. Find a room to go in and you're the dumbest person there because you're only going to learn from there. If you're the smartest person, there's nothing to learn and you're giving out, which don't get me wrong, that's great. If you're the smartest person in the room, you should be in there to teach everybody else that's in there. But if you're the smartest person in the room and you're just there to pass a blunt, you're making a big fucking mistake. That's not where you belong.
I don't have anything else to say, but yeah. Absolutely. You tell me something all the time. It's you are the what is it? You're the average.
Right.
What is it?
The average of you're the average of the top 5 people you hang around. Something like that. The old adage, and it's true. And it makes you when you always remember that, when you always keep that in mind, it really makes you analyze the people that you're hanging around. And we've talked about that a bunch of times too.
For sure. Well, Jeremy, I am out of questions. I don't have anything else to ask. I think this has been successful. This has been inspiring. It's been insightful. Is there anything else that you want to touch on or mention before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll throw it in like this. If you're listening to this podcast, and this talk about finding a mentor and following people is something that resonates with you, and you're thinking like, yeah, this all sounds great. This all sounds great. Do me a personal favor. After this is over, go find 5 people. All right. And this doesn't have to be people local to you. If you could do local, that's great. But find 5 people that you're going to start following. If you want to be a good business person, find 5 successful people on social media that you can start following. If they have books out, that's even better. Start reading their books. Start learning as much as you can about that person and make that person literally a part of your life, because you'll start their habits, the way they speak, what they do, what they talk about will begin to rub off on you. And then as you start doing that to multiple other people, all that's going to start to rub off on you as well. And then you're going to start noticing if you're in that negative environment, you're going to start noticing a slight disconnect the next time you hang out with your friends. Next time you're at a family event, you're going to notice a slight disconnect because you're going to start to realize that these people are not on the same level as you. You're on a 6-figure level and you're hanging out with a bunch of 5-figure people, right? That's what it's going to start. Then you're going to start to say, you know what? I need to find, when I'm not at my house, I need to find somebody else to meet up with. And then if you want to be that business, maybe you enlist, become a member of your local chamber of commerce, something like that. Go to meetup.com. You start meeting up with a different group of people and you start making new friends. Then you meet the guy or girl down the street that has a very successful something business. Okay. And then somebody else who has an online business, and you say, hey, listen, how about every couple Fridays we meet up and we just like, you know, talk shit. And then they come back like, oh, you mean like a mastermind? Like, what is a mastermind? And then you look up masterminds. And the next thing you know, you're in a big group of people. Now you're networking with high level people. Little do they know that you just made 6 figures your first year. And everybody else, there's 7 figures in there. Now you're in a whole different group, all because you decided to follow a couple people on Instagram one day. You know, that's all I got.
Hell fucking yeah, man. That was this whole episode has been great. I think this is where we end it. I think so. We sign off. This Jeremy, it was a pleasure to get to interview you. It's been a fucking gift to be your best friend and to know you for as long as I fucking have.
Appreciate that.
This whole thing, it just, I have nothing but good things to say about it, and I couldn't be happier with how all this turned out.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah. I don't know how to end this exactly, so I'm going to, even though I was the captain of this ship, I'm going to let you park this car.
I'll dock the boat.
Yeah, dock it up, man. I don't even know what you do with a boat. I was going to say park the boat. I'm pretty sure it's docking.
I'll dock the boat. It's all good. And I think that's it. The boat's the next thing on the list, man. We got to get the boat, the Adjuster University boat, and then we'll get the Adjuster University charter, the plane. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you guys appreciated the episode. Got a little long here. Probably won't be this long, or maybe they will in the future. Who knows? But make sure you continue to follow us, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to keep you around. And go to Adjuster if you're interested in more about the Adjuster stuff, go to adjusteruniversity.com. Go find us on YouTube and stuff like that. Or just keep listening to these episodes where we're going to talk about adjusting shit, and we're going to talk about other shit. Talk about being a better person and living that 6-figure lifestyle, baby boo. All right, man. Let's wrap this thing up. I'm Jeremy Redding, and that guy is
Christopher Stanley.
And we're done. Catch you on the next one.
Peace.